Welcome into another D-Rose Sports video. As always, I'm your host, Drew, and given it's Saturday, we are doing our weekly pick'ems for Week 16 of the NFL season. But, as always, before we get into the video, one thing I can ask you to please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. Really helps out. If you're a fan of the NFL, you'll love this channel as we release multiple NFL-related videos every Thursday and Saturday, all season long. Now, let's get back to the video. Okay, so we're going to start with a review of our Week 15 picks, and we went 10-6. We got a little fast and loose with some of the upsets. We picked 6 upsets on the week. We got 2 of them right, so 2 games behind Vegas. Not the best showing we've ever had, but you know what? Not the worst either. I'll take it. I think some of the upsets were not terrible calls, just, didn't go our way. Like the Jets winning against the Jaguars, ho-hum, and then the Chiefs actually playing well against the Browns, even though Mahomes got injured. I mean, that could have been a win, but you know what? It wasn't either way. Let's move on, and let's get into our Week 16 picks, which is why you're all here anyway. And so we're going to start out with the AFC North divisional rivalry, the Browns visiting the Bengals. Last year, the Browns had the better record than the Bengals, but I think we all know who the better team is in 2024, especially seeing as the Browns are sitting Jameis Winston and likely to start DTR in this game. There is no good argument for the Browns to win this game on the road against the Bengals team that is not quite out of the playoffs yet and therefore is absolutely desperate to get wins at home. A weak Browns team, come on, it's simple. You take the Bengals, you move on to the next matchup. And this next matchup is the Arizona Cardinals visiting the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers, sans last week, were actually starting to look good. They had some losses in a row, but they were, good losses. Losses in very close games to teams like the Chiefs and the Eagles, some of the class of the NFL. But last week, they had an opportunity at home against the Cowboys. They were favored. I actually picked them to win, and the Cowboys and Cooper Rush dominated them. This time, they're going against the Arizona Cardinals, a team that absolutely needs wins if they want to make it to the playoffs, with a 500 record sitting third in the division behind teams like the Seahawks and the Rams, teams that the Cardinals certainly believe that they can catch up with and get ahead of, but they're going to need to win all their remaining games, or at very least 2 out of 3. And there's no easier game than the Carolina Panthers that they're going to get on their remaining schedule. So I'm going to take the Cardinals to win this one. This is a must-win for them. Whereas the Panthers, ho-hum. Yeah, Bryce Young's playing for a job and to keep his job as the Carolina starting quarterback in 2025. So I still expect them to show up and try. But the Cardinals are the better team. I think they have every bit as much, if not more, desire to win. And so they're going to take this one on the road. Panthers could make this a competitive game, but it's still a Cardinals victory. After that, we have an NFC East rivalry game. We have the Philadelphia Eagles visiting the Washington Commanders. And when these two teams met earlier in the season, this was looked at as a very good potential football game. Both teams were competing at a very high level in the NFC East, and that was going to be a game where we determined who the favorite was in that division and who would likely be one of the top wild cards, along with teams like the Packers and the Vikings and, the Lions if one of the Packers or Vikings were to take over in that division. However, the Eagles kind of dominated the Commanders in that game. Now, the Commanders are at home in this one. You could make an argument that the Commanders could take this one, but the Eagles shut down the Commanders' offense. That game, the final scoreline was closer than the game actually was. The Commanders scored a meaningless last-second touchdown and crazy 2-point conversion just to make it a one-possession game, and then they failed to get the onside kick, and it was over. But, this game was done long before that one-possession finish that might look a little bit better on paper happened. The Eagles are clearly the better team. Their defense is better. They have the ability to shut down Jaden Daniels, at least they did earlier in this season, and Terry McLaurin, who only went for 7 or 10 yards or something stupidly low. So, even though this is in Washington, you might give them a little bit of a leg up. That leg up is not enough for them to win. I'm taking the Eagles to win this one and lock up the NFC East. I mean, if they haven't already. I think they might have by now, but there probably is a pathway in which the Commanders still take it, but they would need to win this game. They're not gonna, and the Eagles are gonna lock up the NFC East. After that, we got another NFC East team in the New York Giants going against the Atlanta Falcons. And the Atlanta Falcons have finally made the decision to start Michael Penix Jr. Now, we know who Kirk Cousins is. Kirk Cousins started the season actually not that bad for the Atlanta Falcons. But he kind of became absolute ass as the season went on. I mean, The New York Giants aren't much better, but yeah, Kirk Cousins had been ass, and Michael Penix Jr. had to come in and be the starter. And I think this is the perfect game for him to come in against. While I don't know how good Penix Jr. can he really be much worse than Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock or whomever the hell else the New York Giants are romping in at quarterback? I don't think so. And I think the Falcons have a better team than the Giants outside of quarterback. They're also at home. So I have them winning this football game, even if Michael Penix Jr. isn't him. But this is the right game to send Penix in for, because this is a game that the Falcons should be able to win irrespective of how the quarterback plays. I mean, look at last week. They sat Kirk Cousins after last week, even though they won last week. But it was a really, really rough-looking win against the Las Vegas Raiders, the other team tied for last place in the NFL with the New York Giants. They maybe should have put in Penix for that game, so he had a 2-game run against really weak teams. But I still don't mind this. You get a nice, easy matchup for Penix to start with. If you need to go back to Kirk Cousins after this game, you can. But, I mean, let's be honest. If they lose this game, they're pretty much out of the playoff race anyway at 7-8. If they win this game, they still got an outside shot at the playoffs. And so I have the Falcons winning this. This is the right move to make. Even though it's Penix, they still got this one. After that, we got an AFC South matchup. The Tennessee Titans visiting the Indianapolis Colts. And while I believe technically the Indianapolis Colts aren't out of a playoff spot, they're out of a playoff spot. The Tennessee Titans are obviously out of a playoff spot. This game matters for basically nothing to anyone except maybe a slightly better pick for the Tennessee Titans. I'm not going to spend long talking about this one. The Colts are a better team. Both quarterbacks are going to be trying to play well because, again, they have something to play for. They have roster spots next year to play for. The Colts are at home. Anthony Richardson and the Colts are a better team. I'm taking them to win. Let's move on. And we move on to an NFC North matchup. The Detroit Lions visiting the Chicago Bears. The Detroit Lions are clearly the better team in this matchup. The Chicago Bears are what now? 4-9? This team was 4-2 at one point this season. They're on a 7-game losing streak. It doesn't seem to matter that their coaching staff has completely changed over, that their quarterback situation is a brand new first overall pick. Nothing matters. This team can't seem to get wins, even though they've had some close games against each of their NFC North opponents in the Lions, Vikings, and Packers, all of whom are almost certainly going to the playoffs. But while I do think the Bears at home do have a chance against the Lions with a weakened defense, and this is absolutely a game that I would pick the Bears probably against the spread. And I would probably say, if you're looking to feel frisky, the Bears are not a bad pick this week. As a Lions fan, I'm still taking them to win. I think the Lions offense can do enough when needed to win this game against the Chicago Bears. The defense is beat up, and yes, it took an erroneous decision from Matt Eberflus that got him fired on Thanksgiving for the Lions to walk away with the win at home against the Bears. I think that the Lions have learned their lesson. Their offense is still good enough, while their defense will certainly struggle, and this could be a shootout. I think Detroit will figure it out. The Bears don't have a ton to play for right now, and so I don't think they're going to bring their A game. This is a Lions victory. And we move on to the Rams and the Jets. Now, the Jets won last week, against the Jaguars, so give with that what you will, but there's no room for optimism over in New York. They were talking about using Madden ratings to turn down a trade for a guy like Jerry Jeudy, who's been an absolute stud, at least with Jameis Winston in Cleveland, since they traded away Amari Cooper. And, who's playing for anything on the Jets? Guys like Davante Adams, maybe, so they pick up his option. Aaron Rodgers probably is going to be done by the end of the season. I still think Adams will be out no matter what by the end of the season, just given his contract and the fact that it's not guaranteed. Garrett Wilson still got his job. Breece Hall still got his job. Sauce Gardner still got his job. I got to imagine the interim head coach, Jeff Ulbrich, is going to be out after this season. There's no one playing for anything in New York. So even though this is at home for the Jets and they have won some games and Davante Adams has gone off, and, Davante Adams is a guy who plays for legacy. So maybe he still wants to show up. And Aaron Rodgers knows this might be the last hurrah he has as a starter in the NFL. So maybe he still wants to show up. But I don't care. The Rams are a better team. They're winning this football game. The Jets might be able to put up some points. Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams might have some gaudy numbers, especially in garbage time if the Rams are already up big. But no, the Rams are winning this one. They are actually a team that needs wins, given they're tied at the top of the NFC West, and they need wins. They're going to win this one. Rams win. Sorry, Jets fans. Your team's not good. Move on. And in our matchups, we move on to the Minnesota Vikings visiting the Seattle Seahawks. Now, here is a collection of teams that need to win football games. Both these teams need to win. Now, yes, the Vikings have already basically locked up a playoff spot. In fact, they've already locked up a playoff spot. It's not basically, they already have. But they want that number one seed in the NFC, or at least home field in the first round of the playoffs and the second round in turn of the playoffs by winning the NFC North. That is within reach for the Vikings. They are tied with the Detroit Lions, and they have a game remaining against the Lions in the last week of the regular season, which means the Vikings fully control their own destiny to at least the number 2 seed, if not the number 1 seed, in the NFC. On the flip side, the Seattle Seahawks are tied for the NFC West lead with the Los Angeles Rams, who I just talked about, are going up against the New York Jets, a definitely winnable game for the Rams. And given the fact that your wild card teams right now in the NFC are either the Vikings or Lions, whoever doesn't win the division, the Packers, and the Commanders, a Commanders team who is ahead of both the Rams and the Seahawks, yeah, the Seattle Seahawks need a win badly in this football game. And they just took an L this past week by a decent margin to the Green Bay Packers when they also needed a W. So both these teams are desperate for W's. The Vikings need W's to ensure that they have a better playoff matchup and road, and the Seattle Seahawks need a win so they can just make the playoffs. And so with both these teams being hungry, you might think I'm going to give it to the home team in the Seattle Seahawks, but look what they did at home last week against the Green Bay Packers. No, this is a Minnesota Vikings win. The Vikings have been a very good football team. They have consistently won football games. Their losses have been very few and far between, and typically only to good teams like the Detroit Lions. The Seattle Seahawks are not going to do enough to beat the Vikings. If the Packers were able to destroy the Seahawks like they did last week, I don't think it's going to be a problem for the Vikings, especially given the Vikings have destroyed teams in their last 2 weeks, destroying the Falcons and the Bears. You can say what you will about the Falcons and Bears, and I mean, that's fair to say anything you want about them, but still, when you destroy not so great teams, you should still be able to beat good teams. And so the Vikings will be able to beat the Seattle Seahawks. Now we move on to the New England Patriots visiting the Buffalo Bills, an AFC East rivalry that has been one of the most one-sided rivalries in NFL history recently. And I don't mean specifically only one-sided. I mean, it was one-sided to the Patriots, and then it's been one-sided to the Bills. And so who's going to win this one? Yeah, it's going to be the Bills at home against the Patriots. One of the best teams in the NFL, facing one of the worst teams in the NFL. Come on, this is easy. We don't need to talk about it. Josh Allen, enough said, move on. And we move on to the San Francisco 49ers visiting the Miami Dolphins. Now, Miami has a massive home field advantage. Early in the season, it's December. Miami's home field advantage is kind of gone, so this is going to be more of a straight-up matchup. The Dolphins are favored slightly in this matchup, but it's oh so close. But again, this is a matchup where both teams need wins. I don't think either of these teams are going to be able to make the playoffs, which is shocking, especially for the 49ers, but also for the Dolphins. I mean, both these teams, I think coming into the season, we all had making the playoffs. And the fact that both of them are going to miss, that's kind of shocking. Now, it doesn't mean that they are certainly going to miss. Both these teams, I believe, are still in the playoff picture if they win games and things break right for them. But if they lose this game, they're done. Like, they are done if they lose this game. It is over. C'est la vie. Your season is done. And so, again, these are two teams in desperation mode, which is always fun NFL matchups. Two teams in desperation mode makes it fun. This is a playoff game for both these teams. And so who wins a playoff game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Miami Dolphins? I'm taking the 49ers, and I know I'm probably going to be completely wrong because I'm always wrong. I've been high on the 49ers all year, and they keep making me eat my own goddamn words. And so calling an upset for the 49ers to win, why am I doing that? They can't win when they're the favorites, for crying out loud. But you know what? I just think that they have what it will take. The Miami Dolphins, I mean, we saw what Tua did last week against the Houston Texans where he looked absolutely pathetic. I think the 49ers are a better team than the Texans. Yeah, I know the Texans are going to make the playoffs, but the Texans are going to make the playoffs because they play in the absolutely putrid AFC South. Like, if they played in any other division in football, that team is not making the playoffs. Let's be very, very clear. The 49ers are a better team than the Houston Texans, at least in terms of what they play like on the field. Yeah, the record doesn't show it, but I'm going to take the 49ers to do what the Texans did this past week and beat the Dolphins. And finally, we have our last non-primetime game, the Jacksonville Jaguars visiting the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are favored in this one, and let's be clear, this is a freaking toilet bowl. This is a 3-win team versus a 2-win team. And while the Raiders are favored, probably because they're at home and the Jaguars are starting Mac Jones, I'm picking the Jaguars. I mean, the Raiders are going to find a way to lose because they are heavily incentivized to find a way to lose. If they maintain 2 wins, they get a top 2 pick. They can basically get whomever they want in the draft. If they win this game, that goes out the window. I don't think Antonio Pierce is keeping his job, no matter what. I don't think the quarterbacks are keeping their job. Whoever it is, Desmond Ridder, Aiden O'Connell, I don't care. I don't think they're keeping their job, no matter what. The Jaguars don't have much to play for either, but again, I think the Raiders care more about taking the L in this game. This is just going to be a race to the bottom. Let's not talk about it any more than we need to. Jaguars win. They pull off the upset. Let's move on to our primetime games. And we start out with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting the Dallas Cowboys. If you told me a few weeks into the season, I would have said this would be a really good football game. If you would have told me at the start of the season, I would have said, oh, Cowboys should rock and roll this game. Like, the Buccaneers might not be as good as they were this past year, and the Cowboys should be a really good team. In Jerry's world, where they were really good in 2023. But this is 2024, and everything's being flipped on its head, and this is a really easy football game to call because it's a Buccaneers victory. I don't care that it's in Dallas. Dallas has sucked in Dallas this year. Cooper Rush is the quarterback, not Dak Prescott. Nobody in Dallas is playing for anything other than maybe a little bit of pride. The Buccaneers are playing for the 3 seed. They're playing to make sure they can fend off the Atlanta Falcons in the division. And guess what? The Falcons hold the tiebreak and got a matchup this week going against the New York Giants. And maybe Michael Penix Jr. is a really good quarterback and make the Falcons win football games. So if you're the Buccaneers, you need to win. The Cowboys is an easy game to win. They should win it. Go out there and do it. And finally, we hit our Monday night football game. And man, the NFL really kind of, screwed it up with the primetime games on Sunday and Monday. Like that game, the Buccaneers and Cowboys doesn't seem that exciting and fun. Like the Buccaneers should be able to rock with it. But it's at least better than the Saints and Spencer Rattler with no Alvin Kamara visiting the Green Bay Packers. I mean, I'm not going to talk about this any more than I need to. The Packers are obviously winning this game in Lambeau when the best players for the Saints are all injured and the Green Bay Packers at home would be favored no matter what. This is an easy call. NFL, come on. You're able to flex Monday Night Football games. Flex them so we don't have to watch this absolute horseshit. That's it. Whatever. Let's look at the summary of our picks. So here's a summary of our picks. Again, we're about 10 games behind Vegas. We're not catching up with them this season, as much as that sucks. I mean, I'm going to count the playoffs because I'm a little bit... I want a chance, but, we're not catching up with Vegas. We took 4 upsets this week. One of them has already gone south, being the Broncos taking on the Chargers. So we're actually 11 games behind Vegas now. Doesn't show it here, but we are. So my other upsets, I have the Steelers beating the Ravens. That's happening actually today as I'm filming it. Today also when this video comes out. So it might already be determined when you see this video, but I don't know if that's going to be right, especially given George Pickens is out, and I don't totally know what the health condition of TJ Watt's going to be, but that's the big factor. If you watch my power ranking video, you know that I said it's going to come down to injury, but I picked the Steelers because I was assuming that they would be fully healthy. Whether that assumption was right or not, we'll have to wait and see, but that was the assumption. And then my other upsets are, the Jaguars beating the Raiders and the 49ers beating the Dolphins. But yeah. Either way, guys, that's it for this week's Pick'ems. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to leave a like and comment down below. Help us out. Help us grow. Enjoy all the football games and enjoy your holidays. It's almost Christmas time. If you celebrate Christmas, if you celebrate Hanukkah or something else, enjoy that, guys. Just love from me to you. Either way, enjoy it all. Peace!